We are continuing to truck through these wide receiver 2-3 types in the NFL draft. On deck for today is Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver of the University of Texas. We're going to be going through everything from start to finish on Adonai Mitchell, one of the most polarizing prospects in this class at the wide receiver position. By the end of this video, you should know what to do with him in your rookie draft. So without further ado, like, subscribe, all that good stuff if you enjoy. Now let's get into it. All right, Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver of the Texas Longhorns. This is his tale of the tape. 6'2", 205 pounds, age 21 and a half years old. He was born on October 8th, 2002, so still a very young player, under 22 on draft night. As I mentioned in the intro, a very divisive topic in the fantasy space right now, so I'm really excited to break this down and give you guys my opinion on AD Mitchell. AD Mitchell came in as a three-star recruit, number 60 wide receiver in the 2021 high school recruiting class out of Antioch, Tennessee. I think I'm pronouncing that right. He comes in to the University of Georgia as a three-star recruit, and he starts basically as a true freshman and played meaningful snaps for a national championship winning roster due to George Pickens, who was in his draft eligible season, being out for most of the year with an ACL tear. So AD Mitchell comes in, right? That's great. 428 yards, 4 touchdowns as a 19-year-old true freshman, averaged 14 and a half yards per catch as a true freshman as well, on the best team in college football, a team that eventually won the national championship. However, in 2022, he was not able to build upon that freshman performance. He suffered a high ankle sprain early on in the season, and that marred his entire 2022 campaign, really. Only had 17 targets, 3 touchdowns, and 134 yards on the entire season. He did come back in time for the second national championship that he'd eventually win at the University of Georgia, catching a crucial touchdown in the Ohio State semifinal game that ended up icing it for the Bulldogs, and also catching a touchdown in the national championship against TCU as well. Then in 2023, Adonai Mitchell transfers to my Texas Longhorns, has a career year production-wise. However, his career year was just 845 yards and 11 touchdowns on an 18.1% target share, operating as the number 2 receiver for my Longhorns behind Xavier Worthy. So wonky college career, not necessarily the pristine prospect profile that you want to see out of a college football wide receiver prospect. But like I said, he did show up when it mattered. He caught a touchdown in every single 5 college football playoff games that he ended up playing in, and they did actually go to him at the end of that Washington game for my Longhorns when the game was on the line there. So wonky college career, like I said, only a career high 74.1 PFF receiving grade. But he is still expected to be drafted very high in the NFL draft. His projected EDP, according to NFL Mock Draft Database right now, is 30th overall, making him about a fringe first-round caliber talent. Most consensus mock drafts have him going 28 to the Buffalo Bills, playing alongside Stephon Diggs as a back-end first-round pick. I think that would be a very, very solid landing spot for him. In my opinion, he's your classic case of projection versus reality, because when you watch this guy's film, when you look at his prospect profile, he has no business being anywhere near the first round of the NFL draft, in my opinion. He's got a lot of warts to his game, as we'll get into, but projection-wise, given the athleticism, and I see how NFL scouts can get there based on some of the flashes that you see from him on film, I will say he has first-round ability on his good tape. So let's get down to the brass tacks here. Let's get to the 6 fundamental traits of playing the wide receiver position. Number 1, of course, being route running and separation. One of the most fundamental things a wide receiver can do is get open. So here's the good news with Adonai Mitchell. He has a 99th percentile relative athletic score, right? He flashes that athletic ability. We saw it at the combine, and he does flash it in the route running department as well. There's times and moments on tape where he sinks his hips. He's able to get in and out of his breaks. He's very physical at the top of his routes. But perhaps the biggest detractor for Adonai Mitchell is that sometimes he doesn't look like he belongs on a college football field, to be honest. There's times and routes where he's sloppy, he hits the ground too much. Sometimes I've noticed him actually end up on the ground, can't break contact, shows a lack of effort even sometimes on his routes if he's not the first or the second read. But then on other plays, like I've talked about already with this guy, he looks like he's the most unstoppable wide receiver in college football and the next CeeDee Lamb potentially at the NFL draft. The old scouting jargon that a lot of NFL scouts I'm sure will point to is that if he can do it once, he can do it again. But man, there is so many inconsistencies with this guy's route running on film that I worry about his immediate translation to the NFL, because as I discussed with Brian Thomas Jr., I love the tools, I love the upside as a route runner, but I I think even more so than Brian Thomas Jr., who I already broke down. It's going to take time for this guy to work in the NFL level. He's going to need coaching. He's going to need maybe even a veteran wide receiver to coach him up on how to run routes properly. And dynasty fantasy football players are not patient with these type of prospects. So with Adonai Mitchell, I like the upside. I'm excited about him as a route runner, but I worry it's going to take him a year, maybe 2, maybe even 3 years to potentially hit his stride at the NFL level. And if he's not producing in the process of trying to hit his stride at the NFL level, then it's going to result in him losing a lot of dynasty value. And that's one thing I do really worry about with Adonai Mitchell. So number 2 on Adonai Mitchell's traits list here is hands, because he does have very, very solid hands. I think one of the better hands in this class among the top wide receivers. His on-target catch percentage in 2023 was 96.2%, meaning if Quinn Ewers somehow summoned the ability to throw an accurate football, and I can tell you as a Texas fan, it was seldom. It was not often that he did that. He posted basically a 96% catch rate on those plays. So very good. You get in his vicinity, he usually came down with it. He had just 1 drop in 2 seasons as well, 22 and 23 combined. Not a whole lot of targets during that time, over 100 targets, give or take, but just 1 drop in 2 years is very, very impressive. So he doesn't have that concentration drop, trait that a lot of young wide receivers have. And like I said, even though he only appeared in 6 games in 2022, didn't drop a pass in that season as well. So the major bugaboo with his hands trait is really that his contested catch rate is not that high, despite the traits that he does have. 96th percentile jumps at the NFL Combine, a 6'2", 205-pound frame. His career contested catch rate is just 43.3%, which is not a very good number for a guy of those physical tools. And his number at Texas in his breakout season was 36.4%. Now, contested catch rate is also a quarterback stat. Like I said, with Xavier Worthy, Quinn Ewers is a bad quarterback. He's not able to throw the ball where it needs to be. But to be honest, with Adonai Mitchell, given his size, his athletic ability, he should be finishing through contact a little bit better than what he showed up on film. Sometimes I noticed he timed his jumps a little too early. Sometimes his body positioning wasn't properly set up there as well. But overall, his hands were an asset to his game. He just needs a little bit of work refining them at the NFL level. So the next trait that we get to, again, get open, catch the ball, do something with it, yards after catch ability. The metrics are quite lackluster in this area. So even though we have a 99th percentile athlete here, guy who ran in the mid 4.3s, has the size, has the speed, he posted just a 3 yards after catch per reception over the course of his career, 3.2 at Texas this season, which was the 3rd lowest among 31 qualified wide receivers in my draft class database. So the numbers say that this guy sucks after the catch, basically. On film, you watch him work a little bit. It's clear that he has the athleticism to get open, to make things happen. It's just the lack of natural instincts, really, to me, when he gets the ball in his hands. He's not the type of guy that finds green grass easily. He's not the type of guy that's going to make you miss. He's not the type of guy that's going to go through you either. He just doesn't have that feel for open space the way that his teammate, for example, Xavier Worthy, does on the Texas Longhorns. It also really wasn't his role either. So again, you could point to his yards after catch number being down because it wasn't his role. His average depth of target at Texas was 16 yards, and at Georgia it was like 15 yards. So he was mainly asked to win downfield, and because Quinn Ewers at Texas specifically was an inaccurate quarterback, you aren't going to get led to many run after the catch opportunities on the passes that you do get, because the type of receiver he was more of a downfield guy, a lot of contested catches at the catch point there. So again, not great in this area given how bad the numbers are. Like I said, yards after catch numbers are not good at all, but there is some room for growth here once you add in the context of his film. If you get him on some run after the catch type of plays, I'm sure he can run fast in a straight line. I just worry that he's not the most fluid athlete in terms of making people miss and going through people. He's a fluid athlete as a route runner, just not necessarily with the ball in his hands. It's just not his game. It's not instinctually what he does well, but maybe some more room for growth at that area in the NFL. So number 4, ability and trait that we're looking for in these wide receivers is their ability to affect all 3 levels of the field, right? We don't want deep threats only. We don't want short area targets only. We don't want design touches only. We want guys that can do pretty much everything you ask them to do. Over 65% of Adonai Mitchell's targets in 2023 came on routes that were 10-plus yards downfield, and 41% came on 20-plus yard downfield routes. So he has a great combination of physicality, good hand fighter, good strength at the catch point as well, and size to win on the outside as a downfield threat. So the issue comes in with his ability to run routes at a high level. So sometimes you don't see him winning on his deep routes, on his intermediate routes, on his short routes. It's not because he doesn't have the size, the physicality, the speed, and all that kind of stuff to do it, because he definitely does. It's that he just doesn't know how to run routes at a high level yet. So his short and intermediate route trees are pretty limited at the moment. They didn't really have him run a whole lot of routes at either Georgia or at Texas. If so far in this video, you're left kind of scratching your head about Adonai Mitchell thinking, okay, well, is this guy good or is he not good? The answer is, I honestly don't know. With Adonai Mitchell, it's very easy to watch this guy and get excited by his highlights, but it's also very easy to watch this guy and get discouraged by his lowlights. So anybody that thinks that this guy's a ready-made wide receiver one, in my opinion, is solely focusing on the good with Adonai Mitchell, but anybody that says this guy's terrible and can't play is solely focusing on the bad. Again, it's about stacking the numbers, stacking the good traits, the bad traits together, and determining how good of a range of outcomes this guy has. I will say, up until the time that we actually draft this guy in our rookie drafts, he is the most boomer bust prospect in this class, because if you can harness the good, if you can coach up the good and limit the bad, he's going to be a great NFL player. If you can't, then he's going to end up being a huge bust at the NFL level. And honestly, the last guy that reminded me of this was Quentin Johnston last year, as well as Terrace Marshall in 2021, and neither of those guys have hit so far. But then again, George Pickens also kind of reminded me of this in 2022, and he ended up hitting at the NFL level because the Steelers were able to harness the good with him. So again, boomer bust prospects, always a shaky bet, but especially when the guy tests like this, you feel pretty good about taking that risk. A 9.99 relative athletic score, it simply doesn't get much better than that. 6'2", 205, like I said, 4.34 in the 40-yard dash, 1.48 in the 10-yard split, was actually faster than his Texas teammate Xavier Worthy, 0 to 10 yards. Vertical jump in the 94th percentile, broad jump in the 99th percentile. Very, very good numbers athletically, like I said. So I didn't see him do the agilities. It looks like he didn't do that at the combine or at his pro day. I would imagine they wouldn't have been quite as elite as the other stuff, because as I talked about, I think he is a little bit more stiff, not quite the fluid athlete that some people are harrowing him to be. On his highlights, he seems like a fluid athlete, but not necessarily play in, play out. So I was stunned when he tested this well. I thought he was a good athlete. I thought he would run in the 4.4s, maybe an 80th percentile RAS score, a little bit better than that. This is very consistent with Adonai Mitchell, though. The fact that he tested this well, had this many athletic traits, and didn't quite look like the best receiver on the field, play in and play out, it's so consistent with his profile, because he can look like he'll blow you away at times, and other times he looks like one of the worst receivers in this class. So again, very, very similar formula here with Adonai Mitchell. The production profile is really shaky. He has some green flags, don't get me wrong. Played at two powerhouse programs, Georgia and Texas. He scored a touchdown in all 5 of his college football playoff games that he participated in, which shows that he can show up in big moments. But that's kind of where the good ends with Adonai Mitchell. He's a young player, he's played for good schools, and he's an early declare. However, when you stack up his lack of playing experience, and generally speaking, a raw player as a whole, you want him to perform better in market share production. You want him to perform better in terms of play in and play out efficiency. As I mentioned, his career high PFF receiving grade, 74.1. That's one of the lowest in this class. His best season target share, 18%, one of the lowest in this class. His breakout age is 20.9, which is one of the worst in this class. His career high points per game average in PPR leagues, which is what we're looking for in the NFL anyway, 23rd among 31 wide receivers. Yards per team pass attempt, misses the mark. Yards per route run, misses the mark. Dominator rating, misses the mark. First downs per route run, misses the mark. Again, he has great flashes, but his profile makes him extremely, extremely scary, in my opinion. We can make concessions for this production all we want. Adonai Mitchell basically lost his second year due to injury. That's why the production wasn't there. Quinn Ewers held him back at Texas. His role wasn't to be the number one in either situation. At Georgia, he had Brock Bowers and Ladd McConkey there. At Texas, he had Jatavian Sanders and Xavier Worthy there. That's fine. But remember, we're dynasty players. We want players who are going to be number ones for their NFL team, or at least very good number twos. And to me, Mitchell doesn't seem like the type of archetype, or a player at least, that will develop into a number one or number two, given his production profile. He's capable of it based on the flashes, but the flashes sometimes can get you fired if you're an NFL GM. On top of all of these factors, I'm a little bit nervous that this guy might have poor work ethic. I'm a little bit nervous he might have a bit of a attitude effort problem, because it shows up on his film. It shows up in the numbers. He had to transfer away from Georgia. Like there's a couple red flags stacking against him. And to me, it makes me not want to draft this guy in my rookie draft. It makes me want to let my league mates draft him in my rookie draft. The ceiling is not what we're arguing here, because I will tell you right now, Adonai Mitchell's ceiling is as high as any wide receiver in this class. This dude has the ability to develop into the next CeeDee Lamb, into the next T. Higgins, into the next George Pickens, one of these top flight contested catch wide receivers that has fluidity for their size. How likely is he to hit that ceiling? I would argue it would take a perfect landing spot. It would take very good quarterback play, maybe a veteran wide receiver like a Stephon Diggs, teaching him the ropes, helping him learn more about the wide receiver position, and a major commitment above the shoulders from Adonai Mitchell. And I'm honestly not sure that we've seen that to this point in his career. So again, I'm very wary of this prospect. I know a lot of people really like him. Some of the other subjective things that factored into my grade, like I said, raw, inexperienced, route running nuance is pretty much non-existent. As I mentioned, tad worried for the work ethic stuff, but the positives in the subjective factors area is that he's tough, he's physical, and he's a great run blocker. So that stuff bodes well for him, but the work ethic, the experience level, and the nuance is not there at this point in time. So when we get to the final grade with Adonai Mitchell, again, very spotty, up and down conversation so far around this guy. His final grade for me is 80 out of 100, which is right on the borderline of a top 50 NFL draft talent, meaning I would spend a top 50 NFL draft pick on him if I was an NFL team. He is currently my wide receiver 10. So a lot of people probably think that's too low. I have Xavier Worthy, Ladd McConkey, Brian Thomas Jr., Troy Franklin, Xavier Legette, and Keon Coleman all ranked ahead of Adonai Mitchell. If you wanted to argue him over Franklin, Legette, and Coleman, I wouldn't argue with you too much, but I think firmly Worthy, Ladd McConkey, and Brian Thomas are comfortably ahead of Adonai Mitchell for me. If I were an NFL team, I would not spend a first-round pick on this guy. I think he should be taken in the second round of a real-life NFL draft as well as a rookie draft. The grade that I have on him similarly is guys that were not drafted in the first round either. Sky Moore, Christian Watson, and Amon-Ra St. Brown are the closest grades that I have to Adonai Mitchell's 80 out of 100. So coming out as prospects, I did really like Sky Moore. I was pretty low on Christian Watson, relatively speaking, to consensus, but I did think he had good traits, good ability. And then Amon-Ra St. Brown went in the fourth round, but I thought he was a second-round talent, so I was a lot higher on him. The grades, like I said, coming out, Adonai Mitchell is a boomer bust prospect. My comparison is a former teammate of his, which is George Pickens, wide receiver of the Pittsburgh Steelers. The reason I think that they're perfect comparison, they're one of my favorite comparisons of any receiver duo in this class, is Pickens was maddenly inconsistent at Georgia also. He was a bit of a diva at Georgia also, and he still kind of is in the NFL, but the high-end flashes, the contested catches, and all the good stuff as an athlete was there. And it's developed basically into Pickens becoming a high-end dynasty wide receiver, a top 30, top 25 dynasty wide receiver, because he went to a landing spot with a coaching staff and a team that can harness the good and mitigate some of the bad. Mike Tomlin has dealt with receivers like this before, and I believe Adonai Mitchell will need something similar to happen to him, because the best landing spot for him would be where all of those factors come together. A great coaching staff, maybe a veteran wide receiver that could show him the ropes, maybe no pressure to be the number one receiver on day one, like going to the Panthers or going to the Patriots or something. That would be concerning for me, because I don't think he's ready to be a number one receiver yet, whereas going to the Chiefs, the Bills, even the Steelers with the aforementioned George Pickens, the Baltimore Ravens, the Detroit Lions, all of those teams, good cultures, good coaching staffs, good teams with adequate veteran talent there to help you develop as a player. So Adonai Mitchell, in my opinion, would be best if he went to one of those situations. In terms of rookie draft outlook, right now he is my wide receiver 44 among Dynasty rookie wide receiver and Dynasty veteran wide receiver rankings total. Like I said, wide receiver 10 among rookies. In rookie drafts, many people are willing to slot Adonai Mitchell as the 109, 110, 111, 112. For me, I have him as my 18th overall player. If he gets a great landing spot, I might bump him up more to like the 13 to 15 range. But for me, I got to get this guy early to mid-second round in my rookie draft. I do not want to spend a first-round rookie pick on a guy that I believe is one of the most volatile in this class. I realize I probably won't end up with a whole lot of AD Mitchell in the process, because my league mates will be more willing to spend high picks on him, but that's just the going rate. If I'm on the board at 112 and people are excited about drafting Adonai Mitchell and he slid to me at 111 or 112 or something, what I would probably do in a real-life rookie draft is trade back, take a prospect I value similarly, if not more, like a Troy Franklin and Xavier Legette, somebody like that, and let one of my league mates take the risk on Adonai Mitchell. Again, the ceiling is not what I'm arguing here. The ceiling is very, very high with this player. The floor is the thing that I'm worried about with Adonai Mitchell. So at this point in your rookie draft, maybe you argue, just take the shots, don't worry about floor, and Adonai Mitchell is absolutely one of those types of players. If you want the full film breakdown of him, because I do think with this guy specifically, you do need to watch the film on him. Head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use that promo code FSE for 7 days for free, 30% off any of the packages, 6 months for free when you sign up annually. Me and Danny have broken down now 7 wide receivers in this class, including Adonai Mitchell, Xavier Worthy, Brian Thomas Jr., Romo Dunze, Malik Neighbors, Marvin Harrison Jr., and Lad McConkey. So if you want access to all of those film breakdowns, head on over to flockfantasy.com. Of course, you also get first priority to Dynasty decisions. You also get our draft guide. You also get our Superflex rankings, our one quarterback rankings, our trade value charts, our rookie rankings. Everything you could possibly need to get ready for your rookie drafts is on flockfantasy.com. And again, promo code FSE for 30% off any of the packages. So if that interests you, link down below in the description. Let me know down below what you think of Adonai Mitchell. Are you in? Are you out? If you're in, I'm sure it's for the ceiling. If you're out, I'm sure it's for the floor. But let me know down below in the comments. But with that being said, peace out, and we'll talk to you soon.